A veteran is a person who served in the military. Every November 11th, we celebrated Veterans Day to honor individuals who served for their sacrifice. So when did we start celebrating the holiday? Our story starts in 1917 with the Great War.
We have called this emergency meeting to discuss whether the U.S. should enter the war currently going on in Europe.
I'm not sure we are left with much of a choice here anymore. Not after the Zimmerman note.
I'm afraid the general is correct. We can't stay neutral after Great Britain intercepted that note. The Germans were trying to convince Mexico to declare war against us and attack our southern border.
I'm not so sure this is a good idea. After all, the president did use the motto, he kept us out of war. And he has to keep that promise to the American people.
That's true, but circumstances have changed. Even before I was reelected, tensions were increasing a ton.
It all started with the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand. And then all the alliance systems in Europe led to the World War.
And then the Germans sank the Lusitania, a boat carrying over 100 Americans.
That may be so, but if we send over many Americans in Europe, there will be many deaths. And the trench warfare there is brutal.
That may be so, but our soldiers are brave, and that's what they signed up for. Our troops will always be ready to defend liberty at a moment's notice.
I appreciate everyone's advice. I don't have the power to declare war, but Congress can.
So will you ask them to declare war on Germany?
I believe that this is the best course of action. France, Great Britain, and Russia need our help.
In that case, we must hold a draft to get more young men in the military.
How many soldiers should we send over?
1 million! A force that big could turn the tide of war.
The U.S. declared war on Germany on April 4th, 1917. Russia pulled out of the war, so Germany was able to direct more of their troops to the Western Front. This is when over 1 million American troops were sent, and they immediately helped win what was referred to as the war to end our wars.
Yeehaw!
The story of the history of Veterans Day continues with a famous speech given by President Woodrow Wilson less than a year after the U.S. entered the Great War.
All right, so what does the president want in his speech?
A lot of important information. A bunch of political scientists did a study over world politics, and President Wilson wants us to write one big speech over all the reports.
How many reports are there exactly?
Let's see, there are 2,000 documents and over 1,200 maps.
Are you serious? How long does this president want his speech?
Relax, he's already shortened it down to 14 points, and we just have to help him with the wording on some of them.
That's not so bad. All right, what does he want in his speech?
First, he wants to call for an end to secret treaties between nations, since that was a big cause of starting this war.
That seems like a good idea. What else?
He also wants a reduction in weapons and increase in freedoms in the seas. And his biggest idea, though, is an international group of nations that meet together and communicate so we can avoid another war like this.
We can call it the League of Nations. It seems like the president has a lot of good ideas that will make the world a safer place.
Wilson's 14 points was a famous speech that helped drive peace negotiations as the Great War neared the finishing line. The date is now November 11th, 1918, the day where Veterans Day can trace back to its roots. Have you heard of the good news? There's been an armistice in the war. An armistice? Does that mean the world's officially over? Not exactly, but it means there has been a temporary stop of the fighting. It could mean the end in the future. That's great news. That means the soldiers can finally return home. They fought bravely and they've helped our allies win the war. Without a doubt, this will be a day to remember forever. The peace created by the armistice would last, and on June 28, 1919, the Treaty of Versailles was signed, officially ending the war. In November of 1919, President Wilson proclaimed November 11th as the Armistice Day, as a way to celebrate the peace created by the end of the war and the sacrifices made by the American troops. Armistice Day will eventually become the Veterans Day that we celebrate today. How exactly did it happen?
Armistice Day became a holiday on May 13, 1938. At the same time, Adolf Hitler was invading Germany. America helped win World War II. Leaders of the three Allied countries agreed to meet in 1945 to discuss the end of World War II.
It is obvious that my country of Great Britain, your country of America, and our friend ally, the Soviet Union, will win this war in Europe.
It appears so, but at an enormous cost. Many soldiers lost their lives.
Yes, on D-Day, our invasion against Hitler's forces in France, we lost 10,000 of our lives.
History will not forget their sacrifice. It appears our war against the Japanese seems less certain.
Yes, that is true. We've put so much of our effort and our attention towards Europe that we need to still make progress against that country that attacked your nation at Pearl Harbor.
We will need the Soviet Union to agree to help us.
Yes, let's get someone to agree to that at this conference.
We will want much in return, though.
But what choice do we have?
After the Yalta Conference, President Roosevelt passed away. He was soon replaced by Harry Truman, who proceeded to drop 2 atomic bombs on Japan. This would end World War II. The Soviet Union agreed to help with the war, but didn't entirely live up to their end of the bargain. This would lead to a lasting conflict between the Soviet Union and America.
The communists in North Korea have invaded South Korea. What should we do?
We cannot let the Soviet Union spread communism. We must help South Korea fight back.
But I don't want to send any more American troops overseas.
It definitely isn't an easy decision, though.
Neither was dropping those atomic bombs on Japan. So many civilians died.
If we would have invaded Japan, thousands of American troops would have died. We made that decision to protect American lives.
The Korean War ended exactly where it started, with a divided Korea. World War II and the Korean War would lead to the expansion of America's international military role and the official start of Veterans Day.
The year is now 1954. The Korean War is over and the United States has a new president named Dwight D. Eisenhower. Several congressmen have an important idea to discuss with him.
Thank you for letting us meet with you today, Mr. President.
The pleasure's mine. Now, what was it that you wanted to discuss?
Remember that law Congress passed in 1938 that made Armistice Day a national holiday?
Yes, a great time to celebrate the peace of World War I and the veterans who served the conflict.
Well, since that law was made, our country has fought in 2 major wars.
And our country has many veterans who have served in those wars.
So we all thought it would be a good idea to change the name from Armistice Day to Veterans Day. That way we're honoring all veterans, not just those who served in World War I.
Oh, that's a great idea. As a veteran of World War II myself, I do believe we should honor as many veterans as possible.
That is very modest of you, Miss President. But you were not only in the military, you were the supreme commander of the Allied forces on D-Day, the largest invasion in the history of the world.
That may be true, but I do know much more about war now, and it should be avoided whenever possible.
So how will we avoid the Soviet Union?
Through diplomacy, of course.
So you think we should meet openly with the Russians?
Yes, I do believe we should be as honest about our militaries as possible to avoid rising tensions.
I agree. We both have the strongest armies in the world, and we both have discovered the power of hydrogen bombs.
Yes, and my number one priority as president is to keep a degree of peace throughout the world, if at all possible. And that starts with the relationship with Russia. On the other hand, I will start a proclamation for the first ever Veterans Day.
Thank you for accepting our proposal, Mr. President. Veterans everywhere will be so grateful.
The first official Veterans Day was celebrated on November 11th, 1954, in honor of all veterans currently serving or served in the military for the United States of America. So how do people celebrate Veterans Day today? And what else should we know about our people in the military? Veterans Day is now a national holiday that is celebrated every November 11th. Schools and government offices are closed. People celebrate by having parades and ceremonies to honor past and present members of our military. Let's take a look at what a classroom looks like celebrating Veterans Day in modern day America. night, class. Alright, I'm excited to see everyone's Veterans Day projects. Let's see, what did you make for your project?
I made a poster about the 5 branches: the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, and Coast Guard.
And what did you learn about each branch?
I learned that each of them have different responsibilities. The Army takes care of land operations, the Navy watches the sea, and the Air Force takes care of all the flying. The Marines have special opportunities, and the Coast Guard watches our country's waterways.
I'm impressed. I can tell you took this project seriously. Who's next?
I can share.
Alright, go ahead.
I wrote a report about the history of Veterans Day. For example, did you know that in 1968, Congress changed the date of the holiday?
I actually didn't know that. Why did they do that?
They moved it so that it was always on a Monday in November so that workers could get a 3-day weekend.
So what happened?
It only stayed like that for 7 years. People wanted it to move back to November 11th because it was so important historically, since that was the original day of armistice for World War I.
You really did your research. Who else is ready to share?
I am. I wrote a speech about why veterans are heroes.
Do you want to be part of it?
Sure, let's see. A veteran is a hero because he or she keeps our country safe. They make personal sacrifices to serve in our military and defend our liberty around the world. Veterans are brave and unselfish, and you should always say thank you for your service when you see a veteran.
Excellent, that is so well written. We're having a school assembly to celebrate Veterans Day next week. Would you be willing to share your speech in front of the whole school?
I would be really nervous, but yes, I can practice.
I will talk to the principal to set it up.
Students across the country do activities in school to celebrate Veterans Day and learn about our country. If you know any veterans, be sure to thank them this Veterans Day.